Welcome to a cook with me video. I am going to be making French onion soup. I think I made it like once before years and years ago, so I went to all recipes, found one. I read all of the comments and feedback, and I'm going to try and take this recipe and kind of make it my own. One of the reasons why I was really wanting to make it too is because I had some nice homemade bread left. So I was like, can you use croutons? Absolutely. So I just cut them up and then I'm going to put them in the air fryer to kind of toast them up a little bit. There is Supervisor Hunter on duty. And a lot of the people said that they found it a little bit greasy. And it called for a half a cup of butter, and I'm only going to use a quarter of a cup, and then the 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So I am using an enamel covered cast iron Dutch oven. I love this pan. I got it at Canadian Tire on sale. And the other reason why I wanted to make French onion soup is because right before Christmas, onions kept going on sale. Every time they would go on sale, I would buy a couple of bags. And then all of a sudden I have quite a few bags left over. And what better way to use up a bag of onions than to make a delicious soup on a very chilly January day. I sliced this entire bag of onions without crying because I keep my onions in the fridge. I don't know if you're supposed to, but over years of cooking with onions, I realized that whenever I kept them in the fridge and I went to chop them up, I never cried. So I continue to keep them in the refrigerator. It can affect their taste, but I'm okay with it because I'd rather be able to chop onions and not have tears running down my face than by having all of my mascara and eye makeup all ruined because I want to chop an onion. The butter is partially melted and I'm going to turn my heat down. And this is really where the flavor of the soup is going to happen, is adding in the onions and cooking them down and caramelizing them. That was one of the comments in the feedback on the recipe, and I knew that when you caramelize onion, it brings out a nice sweetness. It gets that nice golden color. So I'm just writing down the measurements that I used, that I adjusted the butter, that I used a whole bag of onions, and just writing my own notes. So when I go to make this recipe again, I know exactly what I did. So I did a little bit of reading too, and they said that you can add some sugar to help, just to make the caramelization happen a little bit faster. So I'm just going to keep stirring and stirring. And that was one of the things, is I wish I would have started making this earlier because my onions were taking really long to cook down and caramelize. I probably could have had my heat up a little bit more, but I didn't want the pan too hot that it would burn. And maybe, by keeping my onions in the refrigerator, maybe cutting them and then letting them sit out would have been better. But I just kind of did this at the last minute. So they're starting to brown up nice. I need a separate dinner for our son, so I was getting that already too. But we're eating later tonight, so hubby and I are having a little bit of a date night. And I think this is where I went wrong. The recipe that I had didn't call for flour, but I watched one on TikTok and it was very, very popular, and her soup looked amazing and she added flour. And I think that's where I think my soup would have had a much nicer flavor without the flour, but I wanted to thicken it up a little bit. So I think, I used maybe just a little bit too much flour and I didn't need as much. So if you've made French onion soup, please tell me. Now it's said to deglaze the pan with sherry. I didn't have any. So you can definitely see there that the wine was very kind of thick and gummy because of the flour. And I shouldn't have done that because I think that would have, I don't know, I just didn't like the way that it was looking. And then also the flour kind of took away from some of the flavor. So I am using just a carton of beef broth and then just stirring it in, making sure that the flour, is all broken down. And I really wish that I would have made it without the flour, and I think next time I'm going to try it without. I didn't really like the color of it, and I know that the wine contributed to that too, so I decided to add a little bit more wine to it, and I use red wine, so it's going to affect the color of the broth too. And then everybody said to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, so I'm just adding a teaspoon and a bit in there, and then just seasoning with salt and pepper, and that's really all that I'm going to need. And then also just a little bit of thyme. That's what it called for. I didn't have any fresh, so I'm just using dried, and then a lot of salt and a lot of pepper. So I'm going to let it come to a boil, simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes, it said, and then hopefully kind of you know, see what the flavor is like. So it ain't looking too pretty here right now. I would have liked to have caramelized my onions a little bit longer, but you know, we didn't want to eat at 8 o'clock at night. So you can definitely see that it thickened up. It's nice. It's like rich looking. So I'm going to add a little bit more pepper, but I don't know, for some reason, I just wanted the broth to be a little bit richer looking. And I found this was very kind of like a brown mud color, and I really do think that was because of the flour, but that's okay. You have to learn. You try different things. So anyways, I have the bowls all ready to go. I don't have any fancy bowls. My bowls are from IKEA, and I did a Google search that asked if they were oven safe, and they were up to 400 degrees. So I have my oven preheating to 400 degrees, and then I put the soup in the bowls, and then I just quickly tossed the bread in the air fryer, the croutons. I didn't really need to do this. I don't really feel like it added anything to it. And then all I had was Gouda cheese. So I just grated that, and then I'm going to put it on top, and then I'm going to put it in the oven. And then while that's kind of broiling and the cheese and everything is melting, I'm going to go ahead and heat up the meatloaf in the air fryer. The strangest combination, but that's what I had. I had meatloaf left over, and I wanted to make some French onion soup. Here is the finished product. It was so good. The croutons got a little bit more crustier than I wanted, but it didn't burn, and there is the odd meatloaf on the side. This was so good, and I made it for lunch the next day. My husband came home, and it was even better. The broth had time to sit, so I definitely think that this is a soup I can make ahead of time and then just do the bread and the cheese the night that I want to make it. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to sharing more recipes, including some soups, in the next couple of weeks. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.